Hi everybody, how you doing? Well, today's the big day. This is my golden settings for the program mode on the FZ300, the Panasonic FZ300 lumix. So here we go. I got my GoPro set up here, so I'm going to merge this camera with the GoPro camera whenever I get done with this. Let's go. GoPro, start recording. So what you want to do is get your camera in program mode up here, and then hit your menu button right here in the center, and this page will pop up. Now first, you want to make sure you're on 1 of 7. The photo style, I use a standard photo style. Okay? Now, on mine, I have it set for sharpness +2, noise reduction -2, and contrast -1 because I run a polarizer. That's why I have that set at -1. Sometimes I'll set it at -2 depending on what I'm shooting. I also leave it on standard. Every picture I've ever shot has been standard. It's a really overall good color rendition. So, that being said, we'll move on to the next. Filter settings, I have none. Aspect ratio, 4:3, because it's the biggest. It's the only one that will give you 12 megapixels, the full 12 megapixel of the camera. I crop down from here. The quality is going to be JPEG. And as you can see, it's the top one on your list right here. So that's what I use. We'll go back. Moving on to the next page, page 2. I use AFS, autofocus single, but you also have this AFF, which is kind of like a, in case your subjects were to move a little bit, it'll cover it. There is AFC, which is autofocus continuous, and that is for like bigger movements, animals, birds, maybe. I really don't use it that much, if any. So yeah, I keep it on autofocus single or AFS. It just depends on your situation. Meter mode, as you can see, I keep it on the entire frame. I want the entire frame in there. I have used the center weight and the spot only for certain situations, like in a sunset where somebody is facing towards you and the sunset's behind them, things like that. But 95% of my pictures are shot with the full reading of the whole screen. Alright, moving on. Burst rate, I use high, especially if you're a JPEG. If you're shooting RAW plus JPEG, it's going to choke down a little bit quicker. I do burst. That's how I do high. I do burst, because if you hold her down and let her hammer away, the buffer's going to fill up pretty quick. And then it'll just drop down to, and you won't be happy. Anyway, use burst modes is what I do. Just burst them. 4K photo, I just use the standard one, which is at the top. 4K burst, record while shutters being pressed. It's the one I always use. Alright, on to the next one. Auto bracket, I do not use. Remember, I'm a nature photographer, so everything I'm going to show you on this camera is for daytime shooting outside. Okay. Self timer, it's pretty simple. You click on this one, you either do 10 seconds or 2 seconds, depending on what you need when you're on a tripod or somewhere you have it sitting. Highlight shadow, I do not use. Dynamic range, eye dynamic, I do not use. Eye resolution, I do use. I use extended. Even though it has 3 other levels, low, standard, and high, I have software, so I don't run it up, because I really haven't used these, but I see the extended seems to work the best. You can try it out and see what you think. But that's where I keep mine at. Post focus is off. Page 4. I don't mess. These are not part of the menu. As you can see, they're dimmer. HDR, I leave off. Multiple exposures, I do not use. Time-lapse shots, I do not use. Stop motion animation, I don't use it. I've never used it, truthfully. Anyway, shutter type, I use mechanical, because once you go to electronic, and if your subjects are moving fast and you're moving that camera fast, that picture's going to look bent. Yeah, it's so I just keep it mechanical. That way you're guaranteed that all your shots are going to be correct. Flash, I don't use. Red eye removal, I don't use. I set my ISO limit for 800. I have taken it to 1600. And I'll get into ISO a little bit later, because on the program mode, you could manually set your ISO for what you want. I shoot 90% of my pictures at 100 ISO. And then I let the camera decide what aperture and what shutter speed it's going to pick. And it's done a wonderful job. If you keep that ISO at 100, your pictures will come out amazingly and fantastic. You just have to remember how to subtly hold your camera so you're not shaking. Because when you start dropping into the lower shutter speeds and you're shaking a little bit, it's going to catch it. That's why I meditate. ISO increments, I do 1/3. It's a finer increment and it works great. Diffraction compensation, I always leave it in auto. I don't know if it's truly helping or not, but I've always had it there and it seems to work when it does. Eye zoom, I leave on. Digital zoom, I leave off. Unless you're on a tripod, then you can try it. Going to the next page, 7. Conversion, I leave off. Color space, you have RGB, and you also have Adobe. I don't have Lightroom Classic, so I don't use Adobe. And this is actually for printing, the Adobe. And the RGB is for, social media, computers, that kind of stuff. So I leave it there. It works great. Stabilizer. I leave it at the top one. That's the one I shoot for pictures. The bottom one you use if you've got a tripod and you're shooting a movie on a tripod, then you want to activate that one. If you're doing landscape, you want it off. Period. Because I tried it shooting landscape on a tripod with that on, and definitely it made it look worse. So if you're going to shoot landscape, you want to shoot it with it off. On to the next. Facial recognition, I don't use. Profile, don't use. We're going to now head to the movie. Now, this here is just pretty much standard. The wind noise canceller, I use standard on my mic. The zoom mic is off. Now you can see I'm on 6, so let's take this to 1. So I don't confuse you guys. Photo style, it's the same as my other one. +2 on the sharpness, -2 on the noise reduction, and -1 on the contrast. And it is in standard. Filter settings, none. Snap movie, off. I record with MP4 so that I can use the record quality at 100 megabytes at 30 frames a second. On to the next page. 2. You have AFS and AFF. Autofocus single and autofocus, I call it movement. It's if your insects or your animals are maybe not quite really steady, you can try this. But I have shot 80% of my photos with AFS because you can burst them right there, and that's how I caught most of them. Picture mode. I always leave it at the top one. It's the one that's highlighted the camera. Well, this one here, it's the movie, but I always leave it at the top one. I don't use this one. That way I have more control. Continuous focus on. Remember, this is in the movie one, okay? Let's go to the next page. Meter mode. I do the whole picture. The whole picture. That's right, number one here. I do the whole picture. Highlights, I don't use. Eye dynamic is off. Eye resolution is in extended mode. I don't go any more than that. Diffraction compensation. I leave it in auto. It works especially when you start getting near that, when the camera wants to reach 5.6 on the aperture, or maybe even 8, because 8.0 is the maximum for this camera. That's where this will step in. Eye zoom on. Digital zoom off. Conversions, I leave it off. Flicker decrease, set it at 160 if you're shooting 60 frames or 30 frames a second in 4K. You can only shoot 60 in 1080p or 120 in 1080p. But I shoot I like 4K, so I just shoot them at 30. Mic level on. Mic level adjustment, I always go +3 because I use a shotgun microphone. Mic level limiter is definitely on. And wind noise canceller I set for standard, and the zoom mic is definitely off. Okay, we're going to go to the next page, which is this little tool wrench with a C on it. And custom memory set. I do some custom memory. I mean my in my camera, like for my focus points, and I'll explain that later. But you're not gonna need that. Silent mode is off. AF/AE lock is standard. Most of these are into standard when the camera comes to you. AE lock hold is off. Shutter autofocus is on. Let's go to the next page. Half press. Release is off. Quick autofocus is off. Eye sensor autofocus is on. And this is your when you look through your electronic viewfinder. Pinpoint AF time. This is when you go into the PIP mode, single, but I have a custom focus mode, which I'll be showing you in this video, and where you can watch it to get a better focus point on these FC300s. Autofocus assist lamp, that's when your camera can't focus. When it gets too low, it uses a little lamp to shoot a light out so it can try to focus. Direct focus area I have off. I have focus release priority release. Autofocus manual focus is off. Manual focus assist is just the thumb wheel up here. Anyway, we're going to go to the next page. Page 4 of the tools and the C. Most of these will be on, but we're going to go through them. Manual focus guide is on. Peaking is on. So when you're in focus, when you're focusing, you'll see your little, depending on what color you pick, I think there's red and blue. Yeah. So I have it on blue. It's pretty cool how it works. Histogram is off. You can turn it on if you want, but I have had it on, but it just uses energy, so I just leave it off. Center marker is on my camera. Highlight is off. Zebra pattern. This is important. This highlights on zebra. I usually have it on zebra 1, which is set at 100%. I have Zebra 2 set at 105%. What this does is when you're out there shooting, it's going to show you these little zebra lines, and that'll tell you that that is definitely a highlight in your photos. Now, it doesn't mean it's necessarily bad, but it's just letting you know that you're gonna be pushing it into the highlights a little bit. So yes, I leave it on Zebra 1 at 100%. I leave the monochrome live view off. I leave the constant preview off. Exposure meter I have on. The dial guide I have on. And these live view monitor displays, like what you see inside when you're looking in here or in through the electronic viewfinder, there's two settings. There's this one, and then there's that one. This one I like the best. That one right there. Both of them. So set those for that. Monitor display is on. Next page, record area. I have it set for the camera. You can set it for the video if you want, but I just like it on the camera. That way, it works better for me. This I do not touch. The auto review I do not touch. The function button I do not touch. The side button settings I do not touch. That's just whatever the camera, it comes from the factory. Zoom lever. There are two different types of zooms that you can do with this camera. There's one on the side of the lens over here, and of course you got your one up top here. You can see here that one of these is just like a magnifying glass with no dotted lines, and the other one is a magnifying glass with dotted lines. What this means that whenever you flick that lever, it's going to go to a certain position automatically. But let me fill you in. The reason I leave it here, even though this one's a variable, this one is variable too. As long as you're holding that lever in, it's not going to stop at those increments. Only when you flick it. When you just touch it a little bit, then it'll stop at these increments. So I use this one all the time. You get the best of both worlds. Resume off. The Q menu off. I don't use the dial set. The video button's on. The eye sensor, I have it in a low. So when I bring my head up to here, it comes on. But when I take it away, it's off. Saves power. Good thing to have. Touch settings, I have on, autofocus, and exact. It's pretty much the standard one that comes on the camera. Touch scroll, long. I just leave it on L. Menu guide on. Alright, we're going down to the tools. And this is just pretty much your, if you want to format your SD card, you go there. I mean, we can kind of go through here. It's a clock set, world, Wi-Fi, the beep. The beep is important because the beep, you want to put it at the lowest setting. Because if you're out there with animals, birds, especially in the woods, they hear everything. They got like ears of a hawk. So keep that at the minimal level or turn it off. You can barely hear it on this one. The shutter volume I have at the lowest level. I don't have it off, but the reason I have it at the lowest level because when I'm shooting, I want to hear my burst, so I know like how much I'm actually throwing into the camera. If you can't hear it, you really don't know how many bursts you're throwing in the camera. Next thing you know, you need it when you need it the most, and then the buffer's choking. So I leave that at the low, and as you can see on the side of my camera, I put a little felt pad over that speaker to kind of dim it down to just barely hearing it. Because one thing you don't want is noise while you're out shooting animals or birds. You want zero noise, or just enough that you can barely hear it. So that's what I've done. Shutter tone, it's at number 1. It also comes out of the speaker, which now it is extremely low, so I barely even hear it. Okay, let's move on. We're at the second page. I'm at live view mode. I have 30 feet per second. The monitor display, I have just pretty much it's just one up from the middle. You can set these any way you want. I just use the standard setting. The monitor lumix, I have it at the brightest. Usually you can put it in automatic if you're just out and about, but I put it on number 1 because when you're out there in the daylight, you want to be able to see it. And that does it for that. The economy, right now I have it off, but I usually set the electronic viewfinder for 2 minutes and it's off. And then the camera's off in 5 minutes. And if I want everything back on, I just push the shutter button, and by the time you're pulling that camera up to take a picture, it's already activated. So there's that. I don't mess with the USB mode or any of these. These are all standard. I don't mess with any of them. Language is whatever you prefer. All this is just standard settings. Okay, so we can go through here. You can reset the whole camera through here. You can format your SD card right here in this one with the little wrench. And that's pretty much that for that. And the last one is something that I rarely get into. It's actually for editing, for videos, or maybe some raw pictures. That's basically what it's for. So if you're not into that, I wouldn't even worry about it. So I hope that this gets you a general idea of what I do, so that I can get you into better and gorgeous pictures. I want to get you out of the AI plus mode, so that you can open your heart up more and be a little bit more creative with the program mode. Even though the camera will pick your aperture and your shutter speed, it does a pretty decent job. It really does. You can see most of those photos I let the camera shoot. The only thing that I might adjust it was maybe the light a little bit, or that's about it. Camera does a wonderful job. Now remember, I use software. That does make a big difference. Pick you up some photo software. There's a lot of it free out there, and it makes a huge difference on your photographs. I also use Topaz, which makes a huge difference for my animals and my birds. Even though this is only a 12 megapixel camera, it doesn't get like a 30 megapixel camera, and that Topaz really boosts it up really great. It gives it a nice effect of it almost puts some fur and feathers into those animals sometimes. Anyway, it's a choice, when I first started out, I got the denoise because that works the best. If you can't afford the whole package of the Topaz, they do have a photo AI now, which works extremely well too. It has all the settings of the individual ones all combined into one. So that's something you might want to look at. What you have to do on the control pad on the back, the little circular thing with the menu in the center. So this one is going to be about the control pad. So here we go. Okay, you have this right here, and I want to show you how to set up your focus point. So you're going to move to the left, and this is going to bring up your little focus points. Now, I already have one set for custom one, but this will be open. It'll say free. Okay, so and once you click on it, like it is now, you're gonna set it right here. You're just gonna do that one in the center, and then you're gonna push FN2, and that's it. You're done. That is the best focus point for this camera that I have found. Okay, next one, ISO. If you notice, in the menu I talk about my ISO set for 800, as you can see right here. And right now it's on auto, but I keep this at 100, as you can see right here. This is where I keep the ISO all the time. Now, if you're getting into a sticky situation and you're wondering whether your ISO is high enough, your picture's going to start looking darker in your camera. You can go to intelligent ISO. This will keep you within the range of 800 to intelligent. And intelligent ISO, I think, keeps a lower ISO than the auto ISO. I mean, that's my personal opinion. You can check it out yourself. So if you get in trouble, just set it for intelligent ISO. But you should be able to shoot this camera no problem with 100 ISO during good daylight. Even if it's a little cloudy out, you should still have no problem, because the camera will pick your aperture and your shutter speed. Anyway, that does that. So I hope this helps you. Leave comments. You know, it's my first technical, well, second technical video, and I'll improve. But it's basically a basic setting, what I use all the time for mine, and it does wonderful. So I hope it helps you out. Also, up here, up here will be the best focus point video, and you can check that out. It'll help you get the best focus point for the FC300, and it does apply to pretty much all the Panasonic Lumix bridge cameras. So thanks. May you have a beautiful day. Do something wonderful for somebody. Valentine's Day is right here, so do something special. Really shine that heart of yours out there and watch what comes back. Thanks everybody. Have a beautiful day, and thank you for all your support.